in the beginning. Before the church, before the law, before the fall. Before everything there was God. Our identity, our story, even our purpose. Everything has to start somewhere. And in the beginning, God.
When God speaks, crazy or not, stuff happens. And when God remembers, crazy or not, stuff begins to happen. So what do we gain from some of this stuff? Well, obviously, God remembers, the next thing I would say is that God keeps his promises. He told Noah, this is what I will do. And he did it. He didn't just put everybody in an ark and then go, ha, and then drown them. No, he fulfilled his promise. Even when things don't look like you understand how they're happening, even if you can't explain what is going on, following God and holding on to the promises of God, But again, that comes back to the same thing. How do you know what God is promising? You walk with God. That's how you know. Too many people today have opened our Bibles and they've gone to verses and they've claimed promises that aren't theirs. This is God describing something that happened here with this particular people at this particular time. That ain't yours to claim. Right. But so much poor theology today comes from, claiming a promise that isn't yours. Two come to mind, that ended up, they end up being plaques on walls, and they end up, being little books. And, can I say this out loud? The prayer of Jabez isn't yours.
Right.
That was not intended for modern Western people to pray this and that God would expand our territory. Do you remember years ago when that kind of made its circles?
They had a book, Prayer of Jabez. I remember that.
Can you learn some things from that?
Sure, and about the character of God?
Absolutely, you can. But we just want to market stuff. And we want God to be able, we want to be able to have a formula for the blessing of God. And I did discover, not that long ago, I discovered this crazy formula, for gaining and retaining the blessing of God. It's called the Beatitudes, and it's called living that out every single day of your life. First of all, I think when we find what happens at the end of the flood, we find this. What is the proper response to the activity of God? It is worship. That's the proper response. That's what should happen. The implications of that, stretch into our modern day worship services. And what should they be? What should our worship be? Our worship should be a response to the activity of God. What he has done in our lives, what he's doing in the life of our church, what he's doing, around us, what he's doing. It should be a response. It should be a response to, who he is and all of those things. We don't want to get, get carried away into a whole theology of worship and all that. But that's one of those little nuggets that we gain, from the account of Noah. The other thing is this. When you understand what happens to Noah and his family, and there's some kind of dark stuff that takes place right after.
There is, shortly after.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into all the details of that, but here's what is significant. Water cannot wash away the stain of sin. That's pretty significant.
It is, because these people did not become sinless due to the flood, did they?
Yeah, and no, and it points towards another day when we'll talk about, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin.
The beginning matters. Knowing who God is and what he's done, knowing where we come from, helps us understand where he is leading us.